Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel. My name is RateWrestle, and today we've got a new item which we're going to be adding onto the channel. Hopefully, it does well, which is where instead of hearing people like me ramble on, we're going to be discussing actual wrestling with people that are wrestling. So today, we're lucky enough to get to George Lydon onto the channel. We've had a few technical difficulties, and that's the reason he's a still image instead of a video. But at least he's here. That's all that matters. How are you, George?
I'm all good. Thanks for having me on the podcast, and hopefully it goes well.
Yeah, we've been doing this for the last 20 minutes or so. We've tried a few channels, but now it seems to be on the up and up. So hopefully we'll kick it off, and hopefully it doesn't go a bit dodgier by the end. So I did ask you this question previously, but no one's heard it. So what was your kind of first memory of wrestling? How did you kind of get involved into liking wrestling?
My first memory of wrestling was my cousin, who actually, when I was about 5 or 6, I used to go around his house like loads when my parents were working or whatever on the weekends, and he had SmackDown versus Raw,
Okay.
one of the SmackDown versus Raw games. And I remember he'd be like, "Oh yeah, let's play it," or whatever. Him like being like older, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, play as Santino Marella, and I'll be the Undertaker, and you'll
Okay.
be able to like win." I was like, "Oh okay, cool." And then from there, I just started like getting quite into it, and then I had like a bit of a dip period. But then I remember just being like on YouTube one day randomly, and then I was like, "Oh, remember wrestling?" And then I was just like went down a complete like rabbit hole of like watching it and viewing it, and then I started to wrestle basically. But yeah, I got into it.
Yeah, that's always cool. Yeah, it's a bit different. A lot of people get involved into wrestling via an actual game than actually seeing it straight away on TV. But yeah, I used to be pretty decent at the SmackDown versus Raws, but then I'd play my brother and get absolutely trounced at it. And
Yeah, that was the same.
yeah, it'd be the reverse as well. Oh, you'd be flipping the Undertaker and he'd be Santino Marella, you know, and you're so yeah, obviously you said you went down a rabbit hole. What were you kind of viewing at that point?
It was a lot of because at the time I was like just on YouTube. I didn't know the network wasn't a thing, but I didn't
Yeah.
know about other promotions, so I just basically type up like WWE full match or WWE full show or whatever. And I'd literally just watch anything, but it was mainly a lot of ruthless aggression
Yeah.
era stuff, even though that was a bit before my time. But it was just a lot of that because they were allowed to like release the footage or whatever. So a lot of like John Cena, Rey Mysterio,
Yeah.
Chavo Guerrero, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. So who was your favourite wrestler at that point in time?
Ooh, it probably was Rey Mysterio because his match against his baby match against Chavo Guerrero in WWE was the first like full match I watched. I remember like seeing some highlights because my cousin would show me them or whatever. But like that match was like the first match I like remember sitting down and being like, "Oh, I want to watch this." And then I watched it and I was like, "Wow, that's incredible!" Because he did like the West Coast pop and the
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, like it was cool at the time as well, because obviously WWE was pretty much the land of the giants still at that point. So people like Rey Mysterio seeing him thriving was really cool to see.
Yeah.
So obviously from that point, when did you decide, you know what, I can be a wrestler?
Um. Well, it was a bit after that because that was like when I was like 6, and then I had a bit
Okay.
of like a period where I didn't obviously
Yeah.
wrestle, and I got into it. And then I remember like I remember some of my friends kind of got into it at that point, and we were like, "Oh yeah, let's try and copy what we do on the game." So I suppose you could call it like backyard wrestling. It wasn't backyard
Yeah,
wrestling.
yeah, I know
I
what you
mean,
mean.
it
Yeah.
was really bad, but like just bedroom wrestling. And from there, I remember my friends were like, "Oh yeah, this is cool, but it's a bit silly." But I was like, "Oh no, like I actually want to like I really like doing this." And my parents would probably like hate me, but I'd like do like swantons onto their bed and like do moves on there and stuff. But then from that, I was like, I just remember my dad and my mum sat me down and were like, "Oh, if you want to do this, then we can try and find a school." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that."
Okay, yeah, like that's the question I was going to ask, like you, because if your parents were actually up for you becoming a wrestler. Um,
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool that they actually insisted upon you, like, we can get you into a school or try and find you a school. So that's pretty cool.
yeah,
But yeah, so yeah, the backyard wrestling kind of stuff, like I went through that kind of YouTube. Like, I don't know if you had that kind of motion. We used to have like a YouTube federation at that point.
yeah. It wasn't a YouTube one, but we definitely had cardboard belts and stuff like that. Yeah,
Absolute dross, but then you get a bit too far and you start watching some kind of death matches and you think, I can do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then but no. So where did you start training originally?
Um, I started training at a place called Phoenix because I was like 12 or 13 at the
Yeah,
time. So a lot of places, we messaged around a lot of places. Well, my mum did on Facebook, and a lot of places said like, "Oh, come back when he's 15, or come back when he's like a bit older." But Phoenix were like, "Oh yeah, we have like younger people train. So come down. If he doesn't like it, then you don't have to pay for the session." That was on a Sunday in December, I think. And then I came to there, and I remember like absolutely loving it, like loving every bit of it, the whole session. So
yeah.
from there, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to do wrestling.
Yeah, like I understand that as well, especially with their point, because some people are really into wrestling when they're younger, and it's good for them to thrive at that point, rather than suddenly if you have to come back when you're 15, 16, you might have just
Yeah,
lost any kind of inkling to do it because you've had to wait so long. So it's pretty cool of them to allow you in, because I know Kamikaze do that as well. They've had a lot of younger wrestlers, which is good because it brings
yeah.
you in. Um, so how long were you training before you had your first match?
I had my first match in 2018, which was a tag match. But aside from, I think I started in like December 2016, so about a year,
Yeah,
I'd say. But during that time, I was also doing like, when obviously, because I became like obviously stuck around to do it. They were like, "Oh, if you want to start doing like doing running on their shows, like collecting people's jackets." And then from there, I went to doing some like reffing stuff. I did reffing for a bit,
yeah.
and then I transitioned into like wrestling on their show. And then it was 2018, which I
Okay.
made my.
So, if Cage Match is right, your first match, according to Cage Match, was you were tagging with TJ Sky
Yes,
versus
yes.
Mikey Shadows and Steve the Ref, of all people.
Steve the ref, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely
Me,
brilliant.
me and Steve the ref were. Well, we started around the same time wrestling, but people don't know this because they only know Steve for like a ref.
Yeah.
Steve's a really good wrestler. Like he really knows he can really go. But a lot of people is just like, oh, Steve the ref. So it's quite funny when I tell people like, oh yeah, that ref's like loads of shows. I had my first match in.
Yeah, it's a really odd thing, isn't it? Because to be fair, I only known him as like Steve the Ref, and it was just I suddenly clicked his name on Cage Match and I was, hold on, is this Steve the Ref? And he's one of the Cage Match. So it was Steve Walker was what he was going by in that match, but then he just shows
Yeah,
Steve the Ref.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's how do you think that went your first match?
I think for like because basically there was a story going into it which made the match a lot easier. The story was like me and Steve were the refs of Phoenix who
Yeah,
wanted to like wrestle on the shows. So we did a storyline where like we kept getting in each other's way, like when we were reffing and like stuff like I can't remember like the exact details, but I remember like one time I pushed Steve when he made a mistake, and then led to like the heel winning the match or
yeah,
whatever. And then it escalated. Then they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have a match." And then I don't know how it became a tag match. I think they just thought like, "Oh yeah, these two can't do a singles. We'll just put them in a
yeah,
tag." But yeah, then that happened, and then but like the actual match itself wasn't horrendous. I'd say
yeah.
it was all right. Yeah,
Yeah. Did you have like the proper adrenaline though going when you first had your first match?
yeah, I did. But I think it was good because I was almost semi used to being in front of like a crowd. So I was like obviously reffing, but like wrestling in front of a crowd, I was obviously like really nervous and stuff. I was like, oh god. I was like, remember being backstage, like putting on my boots or whatever, being like, oh, I'm gonna forget the whole match. I can't do it. And then I went out there and we did it. And I was like, it was only like 10, 12 minutes, but I remember coming back and being like, felt like I just main evented like WrestleMania. I was like, oh, that was sick.
No, that's always good. Like, especially if you felt it, that's always great. And then you won a title quite recently after that, didn't you? Like, you were on like the warpath at this point, from going from being a referee to being I think it was the next gen champion for CPW.
Yeah, CPW. Yeah, because I was training at Phoenix, and then I remember a couple of people had said about like, oh, CPW. They were like talking about it, and I didn't really know what it was. And I just remember someone saying like, oh yeah, they have like a training place where you can just go and like use the ring on certain days, like whatever. And I was like, because Phoenix used to train on like mats, so hearing there was like a ring, like you could just do what you want. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then after, it took me a while, but after a while I started training for CPW quite regularly. Then I remember they were like, oh yeah, we're going to debut you against Bashby, who's one of their like top trainee guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And they were like, oh yeah, you're winning the belt. And I was like, I was like, oh god. I was like, oh okay, that's a lot of responsibility. I hope this match goes well. But it did. It went all right. Yeah.
Strapping you to the moon right there, weren't they?
No, giving me the big push. Yeah.
But yeah. So how long did you keep that belt?
I think I was one of the longer reigning champions. I can't remember, but it seemed like a while, but it might not. It might have been like 4 weeks or something. But to me, it was like, oh, reign of terror. Like
4 weeks is better than I've ever done, so that's fine. So who was training you at this point in Phoenix? Who was like their trainer?
Phoenix had two. Well, they had like one official trainer, which was like Psycho Steve, who's an old NWA Hammerlock trainer who helped train like Pete and Mark Andrews.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
And then they also had TJ Sky, who would come in like every other week and do some sessions with them. Because Steve was he's not the most. He's quite broken because he's been wrestling for so long. So there's certain stuff that he can't really do that well. Which but then at CPW it was Will Starr, who also wrestling name is Liam Roberts, I think. He was their head trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then those two were training me for a while. But yeah, it was like the first couple like years it was those guys, yeah.
And then, like you said, you were training a match. Like when I was originally at Kamikaze before they moved to like Tipton, and I think they're in Digbeth now. It used to be at the Badookan, and they used to wrestle on the mats. But it's the greatest feeling ever when you take a bump on the mat and then you actually take a bump in the ring, and you realise how soft the ring feels to a mat, and it's like, this will be fine. So after that, when did you make your way to Kamikaze, like training wise?
It was probably it was either early 2019 or like really late 2018.
Yeah.
So I remember I did, because Chantal Jordan had come to a couple CPW shows and whatever. We were talking about training, so I wanted to train everywhere. I didn't want to be like pigeonholed or whatever. And I remember we were talking, and then I refed his Pro Wrestling Subjective show.
Yeah.
And then loads of Cami guys were there. And I was like, oh, yeah, I really want to train at Cami. And they were like, oh, yeah, just come drop James a message or drop the Paige a message or whatever. Then I remember the next Wednesday, I was like, oh, Mom, is it all right if you drive me to Tipton? She was like, oh, it's an hour drive. And I was like, yeah, but Kamikaze. And then she was like, oh, okay, I guess. And then I arrived about 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Got in the ring and then trained with Kamikaze. I remember training with them. I was like, this is like so cool. And then from there went on really.
Yeah, like what do you think the big difference between like training at like CPW and Phoenix then training with Kamikaze?
It's hard to explain, but if you've trained anywhere in wrestling, or like, I always think about it like different training schools offer you different like different bonuses and different like losses or whatever. Like certain training schools will be like really good at teaching you technical wrestling but can't teach you any high flying or whatever. But Kamikaze, even from my first session, I could tell it was like a very good place to like learn pretty much everything you possibly can, from like groundwork to like strikes to rope work to like in-ring cardio as well, because that was a big thing. Because Phoenix and CPW, they did a bit of cardio, but like Cami was like the
Brutal.
first place where I was like, yeah, it's like, oh my god. That made me enjoy it even more. Yeah.
Like, and especially because they got the cardio, like Marshall X, he gets the cardio in like right at the start of the training,
Yeah.
so you're absolutely blown out at the start. You're hoping you're not in first to do like a sequence.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like Kamikaze is a very good training school. Like when I was there, like Marshall X, he knows that like bits about everything, and he focuses a lot on the character side, and like. I don't know if they're still doing it. Used to do you do like a 30-second promo at the end, and it's good to know, because you like if you didn't do that then, and then suddenly you got thrown out in the crowd, and it's like, yes, cut them out for 30 seconds. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's a very, very good school. But I really enjoyed it there. So you debuted, I believe, in the it's the Roulette Rumble. The absolute clusterfuck Roulette Rumble, which it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch, and like it's such a good concept. But behind the scenes, it's an absolute what's happening.
Oh yeah, it's so messy. It's unreal. But
Yeah.
it works.
Yeah, it's fun because the fans know as well, because they're actually pulling out the names, so they know like nothing. You can't plan. You can plan ish around it and trying to get people in the ring. So, do you remember how far you were into the match until you came in?
I was, if I'm not mistaken, it was only me, Samuel Hughes, and maybe Deno left. So I was final three entrants. And then, because everyone was like getting called out, and I was like, oh god. I didn't mind what position I came, but I didn't want to be first or second, because I was like, they don't know me, and I want to just kind of get in, do my stuff, and then go. So I remember I got called out like third to last, whatever, and I came in. I remember thinking like, oh, okay, I'll probably like get in and hit a move or something. And I remember coming out, and there was probably about 12 to 14 people in this ring, like cramped in, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. And then I came down the ramp, got in the ring, hit some strikes, and then the moment happened with Lee Hunter, which is quite funny. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
I haven't now. I might have seen it. I think about what you were bringing up.
It's so I'm like beating Jim up or whatever in the corner, because both the Hunters are in.
Yeah.
Lee pulls me to the middle of the ring, and we look at each other. He looks me up and down, and he goes, "Wait, are you me?" And then I'm like, Then I remember just being like, "Oh, I've got to say something because it's really funny."
Yeah.
And I just remember going like, "Oh, Dad?" And then the whole crowd laughed, and I was like, "Oh, that was my moment." And then I threw Lee out, and then I can't even remember who eliminated me. I think it was someone just chucked me over, and I took a really bad spill.
Yeah. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah. When you mentioned that, I thought you were going to say something like that, because I was thinking, I thought he was going to come and go, son? And I was like, really?
I think it might have been son, then I said dad, but it was something along those lines,
Yeah, it's always good with people like the Hunters in the ring as well, because they're like proper veterans of the scene, and they're really helpful, the Hunters. They're one of the nicest people I've ever met, both of them.
Definitely.
So yeah, you started debuting like Kamikaze. I don't know if this was. It must have been pre-COVID. You had matches with Deno. I think one of the Hunters, was it Lee?
I had match of Lee, match of Luke Douglas, and Doris, and then Kieran McQueen was my debut match, which was the show after that.
Yeah, Kieran's a great girl as well.
Yeah, I like Kieran.
Yeah, he's fun as well. I love his gimmick, just a tea drinker. Like, it's different. Like,
yeah.
But how do you think you were going at that point? Like them 4 kind of matches under your belt on Kamikaze?
I remember after the Kieran match, I remember before, like a lot of people that I trained with were like, oh yeah, you'll do good, whatever. And the match was fine or whatever, but I think I worked myself up so much that it was like afterwards I was like, could have done better, could have done this, could have done that, but that's just me, because I overthink everything. But then after like my match with Lou Douglas, I really enjoyed. That was like the first match where I was like, I watched it back and I was like, yeah, okay, I actually did, what I like to watch. And then the match with Lee Hunter and Doris as well. Those two are like still some of my favourite matches. Even though I
Yeah,
watch them back and go like, oh, I could clearly do better now. It's still like
that's the
I
way it
can
is, isn't
see,
it?
I can see that I was like really enjoying myself, which is what I like to do when I wrestle.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good. Like, it's better that you can see stuff that you think, oh, I can improve on that. Like, it shows that you love wrestling and you feel like you need to try your best all the time, which is good. Rather than
Yeah,
you coming back going, this is the greatest match ever. Everyone should watch it.
yeah,
And then obviously something happened in early 2020, the good old COVID,
yes,
which
yes,
ruined everyone's life.
absolutely destroyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were you doing during the COVID times, like to keep yourself busy?
So during COVID, I wasn't training until like we could actually train, but I remember I was literally, it was the most I've watched wrestling in like ages.
Yeah.
I would watch like a ridiculous amount of wrestling like a day, and then I'd do that for ages, and then when you could finally start training, I remember me, Steve Walker, and Lee Hunter were like, "Oh yeah, should we just train?" Because Lee has his unit,
Yeah.
and we were like really eager to wrestle. Me and Stephen both really like look up to Lee. And we were like, "Oh, can we just train at your unit?" And then he was like, "Oh yeah, sure." So basically, from like when you could train with like bubbles,
Yeah.
until like full training at Kamikaze came back, I was training with Lee Hunter 2 times a week, probably. So I was quite busy compared to some people, but that was all I was doing, just watching wrestling, training, and going to the gym as much as I could if I was able to. But it was still a bit boring because obviously it's hard to work when there's nothing to work towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there's a show next week or whatever. But yeah, that's what I was doing.
But it's good you kept yourself like in the buzz of it. Like, what were you watching? Like in general wrestling, is it still mainly WWE, or are you kind of branching everywhere?
I don't really watch. I don't want to sound like a snob, but I don't really watch WWE.
Oh,
I know, hot take, but I was just watching like literally like I didn't during that time I was watching a lot of Japanese wrestling because it was like a lot of New Japan, a lot of Noah, a lot of old age APW stuff and
yeah.
like FMW and stuff like that because I love how like Japanese wrestlers wrestle. If like I know it's stupid to say, but like
No, there is a difference.
they wrestle
Yeah.
different. They
Yeah.
wrestle differently to us and like they have a like preciseness about everything, which I really like to watch. It's like cool to watch, but that's what I was watching predominantly. And then I was also going back and watching like World of Sport and like old 1PW shows on like,
Yeah.
YouTube if I could find them, and just because I have a bit of a blind spot when it comes to like um, old to like mid 2000s British wrestling. So I was just trying to brush up on that, and then all that wrestling has helped me like when I could come back to training to be like, oh yeah, I want to try and do this, I want to try and do that. So yeah,
Yeah, but like you watch older wrestling, you pick up stuff that a lot of people are not doing now, which you can kind of bring back
mm,
as well, which is always cool. And like I was watching a lot of New Japan, but I got properly into the Noahs and Euro Japans and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's some of the intensity in like Noah is insane.
yeah,
Like Keno and Nakajima, like people
yeah,
like that, they just boot each other in the face, and it's just like, it's like okay then. um,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, I like all kinds of wrestling. Like I kind of give it all like deathmatch wrestling, like your Japanese wrestling, because it's just as long as you enjoy it. That's all that
yeah,
matters,
yeah,
really.
definitely.
So obviously after COVID, you noticed you started to kind of pick up like you were getting around a lot more.
Yeah,
Like I saw you wrestling at holiday parks.
yeah.
Then there was is it FPW? I think it was. I can't remember what they're called.
Full thoughts.
That's it. Yeah, you were wrestling
Yeah,
there, and then obviously you picked up onto the Kamikaze main shows at that point as well.
yeah, yeah.
Because I remember you had a dark match, which I just missed, so I do apologise. I was at a
All right.
restaurant appearing, and you wrestled the Kamikaze Kid.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
which a lot of my mates and people, they said it was it was definitely worth being on the card. Like, a very good matchup. How did you think you did?
Yeah, well, I train with. I don't want to reveal his actual name.
Yeah, I know.
I train with the Kamikaze Kid quite a lot. Well, especially. Yeah, I think we both have like the similar mindset of wrestling. We both like similar wrestling
Yeah.
and stuff. So when we like do stuff in that match took like 5 minutes to plan. We like knew everything. And because we trained so much with each other, it felt fun. It didn't feel like stressful, which is what I wanted when I was like doing a Cami main show. I didn't want to be like backstage being like, oh no,
Yeah.
hopefully it goes all good. I was like, yeah, it's fine. I don't need to stress. Obviously there was like a level of stress, but it wasn't like,
Yeah, it wasn't overdrive.
yeah.
Like, what, this could go terribly wrong.
Yeah.
And then I think you did. I don't. This might be wrong, but you kind of proper debuted in the Overtop Rope Battle Royal. I don't know if you had a match before that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my main debut.
That was a good match as well. The Over the Top. Like, there was some people I hadn't seen. Like, I can't remember his name now. It's like Tom. He was an American. He was like built like Walter, like Tom Shire. That's
Shire,
it. Like, he came down and like I couldn't believe it. It was just literally like Walter just came in and battered everyone.
Yeah.
But obviously you were properly. You came down and obviously you were in the Overtop room, the Rumble. So how did you feel in that?
That felt it felt really cool because so obviously it's my main show Cami debut, and I'd been helping out at the shows and doing like the live shows and stuff. So once you finally get like the like, oh yeah, you're on this show doing this, it's like really cool. And then being backstage with like all the like these actual like indie wrestlers, like people that are making like a decent wage or whatever they're doing, like actually like significant things like BritWres. It was like really cool. And then like doing the actual match was fine. I felt very comfortable in there with everyone. I didn't feel like stressed out or nervous about my own performance, and I made sure I did stuff that was somewhat easy for me to do, but also stuff that would make the crowd remember me as well, because I didn't want to just come in and be the guy where people are like, oh yeah, he was in it, I didn't want that to happen. I wanted it to be like, oh, remember when this guy came in and you did that? Yeah, I think it went very well.
Oh, of course it did, because like next up, like you had like a mammoth June where you won the Kamikaze Pro Dojo title, beating Chantal, who had been on a reign of terror in the dojo for ages, and obviously Chantal's probably one of the bigger people to ever come out of the dojo. She's insane what she's doing now. So that must have been a big highlight, Kamikaze deciding you're going to be the next like in line.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, and then obviously you had like a small match against Chris Ridgway.
Yeah, nothing to talk about there.
Which it was incredible. Like, I honestly, like, the beating you took, but the fire you showed and everything, like, it was an insanely good match. Like, if people haven't watched it, like, check it out. It's got to be on demand by now, but like, it was.
Yeah, it's on Vimeo.
Yeah, it was crazy the amount of kicks that Chris Ridgway delivered to you.
Like, yeah, no, it was quite painful.
Yeah, I was hoping you know. It was nice and soft. Like, how did you feel wrestling someone like Chris Ridgway?
It was weird because when we were planning the match and just before we went out, I felt like absolutely fine, excited. And then I remember like I was in the ring doing like my pre-match stretches or whatever, and he was making his entrance, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually wrestling. There was like a click that happened, like, oh yeah, I'm actually wrestling this guy. We're actually going to have a match now. And then I got like a bit nervous or whatever, but as soon as we locked up and started, I was like, oh yeah, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And obviously he knows what he needs to do, so there wasn't any like nerves during the match or whatever. I was just in the flow state of like, I need to wrestle to the best of my ability.
Yeah, and like with Chris Ridgway in the ring, if he thinks something's probably going to go right, he's the kind of guy that could cover up instantly. And like, your nerves probably would have went as soon as he kicked your soul out your body. That's But yeah, like everyone was raving about that match at the point. Like I rated it really high on the website as well,
Yeah.
and which we don't get to hear very often. We Chris Ridgway bigged you up after the match as well.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that was yeah.
I'm assuming you didn't know that was going to happen.
No, he said after the match, he was like, "Oh, after the match, whatever, I'll leave and you can stay in the ring or whatever." But we didn't really discuss it. We were
Yeah.
just kind of like, whatever happens, happens. And then I remember he just gave me the brain buster. And we were, I was obviously lying there. Then I
Dead.
remember I didn't even see him like pick up the mic. He just started talking. I was like, oh, I wonder what he's gonna say or whatever. Then he said like really like nice positive things, and I was like, oh, damn, that's like sick. And then he left, and obviously like I had the moment where like the crowd were clapping and whatever. And I went backstage, and he was like straight away. Everyone was like coming back to me like, oh yeah, that's a very good match, whatever. That like whole end match to like going back to the curtain was like a surreal moment.
Yeah, like as I said, like that was like a proper breakout moment. Like
Yeah,
fans clapping, applauding. You've just you've faced Chris Ridgway. Chris Ridgway doesn't speak that often, so like I knew his accent, but like I don't hear him that often. So when you look at him and hear his accent, I'm like, oh yeah. But
yeah,
like he just he's not he's one like you can tell Chris Ridgway loves wrestling, so for him to give you that kind of like passing of the torch kind of you're
yeah,
good enough to be
yeah,
in the ring with me, especially because he said that when you were in the overtop battle royale that you were the one he wanted to face, like he
yeah,
bigged you up proper well, and that's
yeah,
incredible. um
yeah. No.
but yeah, so after that, before we go into a couple more wrestling things, we're just going to mix it up a bit. So
Mhm.
what do you do like in your spare time? Like you like into music, films, etc. like
Yeah, I'm into music. I'm doing a music production course
that?
at
Okay.
college, and then also go to like live events. But then besides from wrestling, I'm not obviously wrestling's like
Yeah.
my main thing, but music as well. And then um just mainly music and wrestling really. I don't don't really have a lot going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, those are the main two.
What kind of music you're into?
I'm into like I don't wanna yeah, it's like punk and some types of like metal and stuff like that, but not like I don't know how to describe it. I guess you could call it like extreme metal, like whatever falls under that umbrella. But yes, like
Yeah.
heavy music. That's basically what I'm into.
Yeah, that kind of
So
thing.
yeah,
Like one of my favourite gigs I ever went to was Bad Religion. Like
mm,
punk like insane.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, do you watch many films or anything? Or is it just music and wrestling at the moment?
Oh yeah, I'm quite into films. I'm not really into TV shows, but I love films. I
Yeah.
watch films. Yeah.
So you probably know what the next question is. What's your favourite film?
My favorite film. I'd have to do like a joint top three. I'd
That's fair
say
enough. Yeah.
I'd have to do. I rewatched it recently, so that's probably why it's in the top three. But Godfather,
Yeah.
Usual Suspects, and oh, what is it? Literally forgot the name of it.
It's that good. You remember?
Yeah, it's that good. Forgot the name.
What's the story?
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Yeah. Yeah.
Goodfellas.
The guy just passed away recently. I
Yeah,
can't
he
remember.
did.
I can't remember what character he played. The bigger guy.
Yeah,
But yeah, so you're proper like me. You like you kind of gangster films.
yeah.
Have you watched Scarface?
I have. Yes, that'd probably be like number 5 or 6. I'd say.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like that kind of gangster movie and stuff are what like my proper wheelhouse stuff, like The Irishman and stuff
Yeah.
like that as well. But yeah, so I noticed on your cage match as well, because that's where I've been digging deep into your life.
Yes,
You wrestled recently Doug Williams, which is
I
incredible.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was a bit surreal as well. Another
like
very good moment.
how was it like backstage, like him setting a match up with him?
Oh, it was great because it was me and Doris
Yeah.
and him in a triple threat,
Hmm.
and obviously me and Doris were like good friends or whatever. It was like just a moment where like we were sat in a triangle just listening to like Doug Williams about wrestling and what we should do in the match, and I was like, oh, this is like really cool. And he planned the match. He planned the match for us. We put in our bits and pieces, and then like actually, it was another moment like the Chris Ridgway match. You don't really realize you're wrestling
Yeah.
the caliber of people you're wrestling until you're in the ring. It's like I'm wrestling DeReiss and, Doug Williams, who's like, for a time was like one of the
Yeah, like a
most
god of
like
British wrestling.
popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was surreal. And then after the match, he had like kind words for me and DeReiss as well. So that was like really cool, you know.
Yeah, like to wrestle Doug Williams, like it's just you've kind of doing pretty well when you get to wrestle people like
Yeah.
that. Like, and it's nice to share it with someone like the Reese as well, wrestling Doug Williams.
Yeah.
Who won that match?
I actually did. I pinned Doug Williams. Yeah. Because at Full
Oh,
Force, because it was at Full Force, I'm a heel there, so I did like a bit where I came out and like inserted myself into the match or
okay.
whatever. And then Doris hit I think Doris hit the 619 then a frog splash, and then I came in and gave him the old shit can out, and then pinned Doug Williams to the 3 count, and then ran away. But yeah, no, it was
You still
I
beat Doug
remember.
Williams. That's all that
Yeah,
matters.
no. Yeah, no, but that was like a great experience. Definitely like top experiences I've had.
Yeah, like you've done some incredible things for the first few years. So, like, you're wrestling Chris Ridgway, you've won a few titles, flipping Kamikaze titles, your main rosters. Like, it's going really well. So, and
Yeah.
then I think it's not this Sunday, but the Sunday afterwards.
Mhm.
Your next match, you're facing Luke.
Yeah, Luke Douglas.
Because he won the Roulette Rumble. So you're going to be
Yeah.
fighting him for the Kamikaze title,
Mhm.
Dojo title. I've got a soft spot for Luke, as what we were discussing before the camera, so I can't go. Yeah, I hope you beat him.
Yeah.
I hope you lose though.
Okay. Nice.
So what else is next to you?
I've got a bit of a break in terms of shows and stuff for a bit. But in September I'm doing Wrestle Carnival. Then I've also some Full Force dates, and then obviously Kamikaze, but those are like yet to be finalised and
Yeah.
stuff. But the main two I've got are the next Kamikaze Pro Live one, and then the next Wrestle Carnival one, which is Crowley's. No, it's not Crowley's Funhouse. No, it is. It
Is it
is.
the one at Coventry?
Yeah, the one in
Yeah, yeah.
Coventry.
Yeah, because DP, one of our hosts, he was going into it because it was supposed to be in London,
Yes.
but it got changed to Coventry. I'm still tempted to go to it, I'll be honest, because
Yeah.
Crowley, it's just I've not been to it, and the card looks pretty decent.
Yeah. No, Carnival shows are great. I was on their last one in Carv, and it was like that was a really cool show. Yeah.
Okay. And then the final question before we wrap this up: what is the ultimate George Lydon dream match at the moment? Who do you want to face?
As in like people that are currently wrestling, or like
We'll do both as well, current wrestlers, and then who you would have faced at all time, like any kind of person. So someone like Bruno Sammartino, if you really want to go down that route.
Okay, yeah. Currently, that's a tough question. Currently,
We need answers.
I'll do like a top 3/4.
No, that's fine. Yeah, the more the merrier.
Yeah. The top one I'd say is a American wrestler called Brian Keith. I think that's how I pronounce his name, Brian Keith. He does like he's like Texas area. He does like really cool matches. I really enjoy his stuff, like strong style mixed with like brawly type stuff.
Yeah.
But I love watching that wrestling. It'd be really cool to wrestle him. And then who else? Jordan Oliver, who wrestled on DCW and some other stuff.
Young,
I'd like
Dumb
to
and
wrestle
Broke.
him. Yeah. And then I'll do two from the UK because I did two Americans. I'll do. Really like to wrestle Robbie X. That'd be great.
That'd be good as well. Like Robbie X he's the most.
Yeah.
I feel like it sounds weird saying it, but I feel Robbie X is still underrated.
Yeah, no, I think he is. I
He's
think
incredible.
He's not underrated in the UK, but in the wider wrestling world, he should definitely be like everywhere.
Yeah, like when I first went to Kamikaze, he was like a proper heel, but like he was like the kind of heel that he was so good you just loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, Robbie was on the first Kamikaze show I went to. He wrestled. I think he wrestled Hardcore Holly in the singles. Yeah,
I think you would have went just before I started going, because my first one was the Too Cool.
Yeah, my first one was Underground 2, Will Ospreay versus Ryan Smile in the main event.
Was that the Empire?
Yeah, that was the original Empire. Yeah.
Yeah, because when Ospreay, I know it was Ryan Smile did the bump. I was one of the people that caught him.
Yeah.
Because I was one of the trainees, so it was just like Ryan
Nice.
Smile back. Like obviously, it's sad to hear about Ryan.
Yeah.
But like out back, Ryan was like you better catch me. And I was like, I'm just, okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and then so who's the other UK wrestler?
The other UK wrestler is I'll do 2 again. It's either Leon Slater or Dan Maloney. Those 2 guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a bit of training with Dan when we were doing the Hunters sort of stuff. Sometimes he'd come in and teach some stuff, but like I really rate Dan. I really like his wrestling style, and he's just like all around probably one of the best like workers in the country. And then Leon Slater's like really like I remember I watched his match at Wrestle Carnival like from the merch table, and it was like absolutely sick. Like it'd be great to wrestle him. Like in front of like 5 people, I'd still like wrestle him or whatever. It'd just be great, I think.
Yeah, that sound like there's some very good like wrestlers, like and I think you put on some great matches. Like there's different variations as well. Like you've got, like you said, Brian Keith, the hard hitting kind of guy. Jordan Oliver's more like you can hit, but he's more aerial.
Yeah.
And then Dan Maloney will kill you. Chop your soul out. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And then we might as well throw it. Who would you wrestle that you couldn't really wrestle now? So like you, as I said, Bruno Sammartino. That's not the one, but
There's a couple actually. I think there's some wrestlers that I won't get to wrestle because they'll retire before I get the chance. So guys like Great Sasuke, Takamichi. Jushin Liger already retired, but if I could ever wrestle Jushin Liger, that'd be cool. Then like dead wrestlers, I'd probably say Eddie Guerrero would be like really high up there.
Yeah.
In terms of like, because I just love watching him wrestle, and then because he's just so like smooth. But those would be like my picks for people that I'd like to wrestle. Probably won't because they'll be either retired or they're not with us anymore. But yeah.
That's a very cool list of wrestlers, and from what you're saying now, I feel like you're going to be in the best of the Super Juniors in a few years' time. That's what.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and remember, this is where you started on this podcast. I started this. But yeah, so that's it from myself and George. So before we start kicking out the YouTube channel, tell them about your socials, George.
Okay, so Twitter and Instagram are my main ones, and it's just George _ Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Messed it up.
Don't worry,
George
I'll do this.
_ on Instagram and Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram, but on Twitter you'll see me like retweeting stuff that I like, and I'll occasionally tweet. But mainly Instagram is the one that I'm like always up to date with. So yeah, those my 2 main socials.
Excellent. Okay, so that's it from us, guys. So obviously, please like and subscribe the video. Follow us on Twitter as well, which is honor_club. I do it as well, and it's honor_club on Twitter. We've got a Discord, so jump in on that. And I hope you all have a nice time. And if you comment down below anyone else you'd like us to interview, we'll try and see if they will bother with us. But yeah, you all have a nice day, and goodbye from both of us.